Dead weight. That's what you are. Avery! The words hit harder than the clink of glassware around us. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. But Ryan Keller, my boss of 11 years, stood tall at the head of the long mahogany table, his voice carrying over the low jazz and the murmur of Chicago's downtown dinner crowd. He smiled, that practiced, camera-ready grin, 11 years, and she still slows every team down. We're moving fast, Avery, and you're not coming with us. Laughter flickered along the table, hesitant at first, then contagious. The clients looked confused, caught between politeness and spectacle. Someone's fork hit a plate. My own hand froze mid-air, steak knife suspended, a perfect caricature of disbelief. I'm Avery Callahan, 42, senior systems architect. My job was to make chaos efficient. I never thought I'd become part of the chaos myself. The restaurant smelled of charred ribeye and burnt ego. I could feel my pulse in my throat, but I didn't move. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Ryan's voice kept rolling, filling every inch of air he could find. Effective immediately. HR will follow up Monday. He lifted his glass again, smirking. To momentum. No one toasted back. Across from me. Julia from compliance shifted her napkin like she could hide inside it. Gabe, my old analyst, studied his wine. Even the clients looked uneasy, eyes darting anywhere but me. I swallowed, set my knife down carefully, and stood. My chair scraped the floor louder than I expected. Every eye followed me, the same way they'd watch a car crash they couldn't stop. I met Ryan's stare and said, quietly, "You just fired the person who built the system that landed this contract." He blinked, still smiling. I walked out before he found something clever to say. Near the exit, a man in a navy suit stopped me. Silver hair, calm eyes, no smile. He slid a business card onto the edge of a linen tablecloth. "Elias Grant," he said. "Grant Capital." I looked down. Heavy stock, raised lettering. He added softly, "Dead weight doesn't build systems like yours." I left the restaurant with that card in my hand and the city wind in my face, wondering what, exactly, had just begun. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the edge of my bed, the city lights strobing through the blinds, turning my apartment into a silent theater of mistakes. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing emails from people who'd laughed at the dinner, now pretending to be outraged on my behalf. "Tough break, Avery. If you ever need to talk." Their pity felt worse than their silence. The business card lay on my nightstand, gleaming faintly under the lamp. Grant Capital. I must have picked it up 100 times, traced the embossed letters like they might tell me what to do next. By dawn, I'd showered, ironed my only blazer that still looked professional, and taken the L into the loop. The air was cold and metallic, the kind that makes you feel more awake than you should be. The building on West Monroe looked like money-mirrored glass. Lobby marble too polished to step on. The receptionist didn't look up until I said the name on the card. Then everything changed. "Mr. Grant is expecting you," she said. Standing, 17th floor. The elevator hummed in perfect silence. When the doors opened, he was already there. Elias Grant. Same calm eyes, no pretense of surprise. "I'm glad you came," he said, motioning me into an office that felt more like a museum. He didn't waste time. "I've followed your work since your white paper on adaptive freight logic. You built something 5 years ahead of what's out there." I blinked. "You read that I annotated it," he said simply, handing me a folder. My own handwriting looked back at me diagrams, flowcharts, the coffee ring from that night I'd worked until sunrise. He leaned forward. "They diluted your design for investors. I want it rebuilt, quietly. You'll have funding, full autonomy. Then no LinkedIn, no press, no name until it's ready." It wasn't the offer I expected. It felt more like a pact. I stared at the folder, then at the skyline behind him, Chicago unfolding in cold, glassy lines. My life had already burned down. What was left to lose, I reached for the pen. The paperwork for ForgeWorks LLC arrived on a cold Thursday morning, printed on thin government stock that smelled faintly of toner and new beginnings. I signed it at my kitchen table, beside a half-eaten bagel and a laptop still showing the Connex login screen I couldn't bring myself to close. A few keystrokes later, my name disappeared from every traceable record. Oak Park wasn't glamorous, but it was too quiet for anyone to look twice. The office I found sat above a dentist's clinic, wedged between a bakery and a locksmith, 2 small rooms, 1 window, and wiring old enough to hum when the lights turned on. Still, when I plugged in the first server, that low hum felt alive. The next step was impossible to do alone. I scrolled through old contacts, hesitating before each name. Pride was heavy, but purpose was heavier. Priya Patel picked up on the second ring. "I heard what he did to you," she said before I spoke. Her voice had that same clipped calm she used when debugging. She'd been laid off 2 months earlier, budget cuts, they said, but I knew she was taking care of her younger brother, working contract gigs at night. When I told her about ForgeWorks, there was silence, then a breath. "You still have the old framework." Gabe Miller came next. He'd walked away after management called QA non-revenue. I expected cynicism. Instead, he laughed a short, bitter sound. "Name the rules," he said. Rosa Alvarez was last, fired after leaking internal emails proving data manipulation. She didn't even ask what the project was. "If it hurts them?" she said. "I'm in." By Sunday, we were sitting in that cramped office, surrounded by tangled cables and takeout boxes. No Slack, no cloud, no traces. Burners only, local servers wired directly. Every change logged by hand, every build scrubbed daily. No one talked much. We didn't need to. The air smelled like solder and stale coffee, and for the first time since the steakhouse, I felt steady when the first line of code compiled clean. We didn't cheer. We just sat there, watching the monitor's glow flicker against the darkened window. The ghosts had found their ground. 3 weeks bled together into a single, sleepless rhythm. Code, test, rebuild, repeat. The office above the dentist's clinic had turned into a maze of cables and coffee cups, our breath fogging the windows while the radiator coughed in protest. Nights blurred into mornings. Priya's brother sometimes called past midnight. She'd answer with one hand, still typing with the other. Gabe muttered to himself, timing every run. Rosa barely spoke, except to curse the hardware when it lagged by a millisecond. Then one night, something shifted. Gabe hit compile, and the system ran clean. No red flags, no crashes. A single prompt appeared, route recalculated, total time 42.3 seconds. For a moment, none of us moved. Then Rosa exhaled, slow and shaky. Priya leaned back, eyes closed, whispering, 42. That was it. No champagne, no high fives, just the sound of the servers humming, steady as a heartbeat. After weeks of building in the dark, we had proof. While the others packed up, I stayed behind. The glow from the monitors washed the room in pale blue. I opened a browser, more out of habit than curiosity, and typed the name I hadn't said aloud in weeks, Connex Logistics. A press release filled the screen, bold, confident headlines about RouteLink 2.0, their next-generation routing platform. There was a demo clip embedded, the same color palette, same interface logic, but slower, clumsier, wrong. My fingers froze on the trackpad as I scrolled through a line of their sample code. I knew that indentation, that variable name, that stray double space after every third loop. It was mine, from the old build, the one they killed the night before they fired me. My stomach turned cold. They hadn't just buried my work, they'd exhumed it, renamed it, and broken it beyond recognition. Downstairs, the dentist's drill whirred faintly through the floorboards, sharp and steady. I stared at the stolen code glowing on my screen until my reflection blurred in the glass. Proof, not pitch. That was our rule. And now, I had proof of something else entirely. The envelope arrived on a Monday. Thick and cream-colored, stamped with the Connex logo in silver foil. No return address. Just a weight that felt heavier than paper. Rosa found it wedged under the office door when she came in with coffee. She set it on my desk without a word. Inside were 6 pages of accusation, written in legalese sharp enough to draw blood. Cease and desist immediately. Misappropriation of proprietary architecture, intellectual property theft, words stacked like bullets. My name appeared 7 times. By the second paragraph, my throat had gone dry. Gabe stood behind me, reading over my shoulder. They're calling us thieves, he said flatly. I laughed once, short and bitter. They always did have a talent for irony. An hour later, I was in the elevator of Grant Capital, letter trembling slightly in my hands. Elias met me halfway through the hallway, already reading my face. Let me guess, he said. Connex found religion. He took the pages, skimmed the first 2, and was already dialing. Morgan, bring the kit. Morgan Lee arrived 20 minutes later. Tall, dark suit, energy like a lit match. She dropped a leather case onto the table and began unpacking it tablet. Legal pad, portable scanner, no small talk. They're accusing you of stealing your own work, she said after skimming the letter. Classic move. I slid a folder toward her, my old project notes, commit logs, archived Slack threads. Morgan's eyes flicked fast across the timestamps. Good, she murmured. They fired you, but they never bought you out. That means the IP tied to your personal design still belongs to you. She tapped her pen against the table. You're the legal ghost haunting them. Elias leaned back, a faint smile forming. Draft the response. By evening, Morgan had built a counterclaim sharp enough to cut steel. Every diagram, every dated email, every clause of the old NDA stitched together like armor. She printed the final draft and slid it toward me for signature. My hands no longer shook when I signed my name. The fear that had followed me since that steakhouse dinner began to dissolve, replaced by something steadier precision, focus, control. When I looked up, Elias nodded once. Now, he said, we make them remember who they fired. The legal back and forth turned into background noise, a steady hum of filings, red lines, and corporate threats that Morgan handled like weather. While the lawyers sparred, we stayed buried in code. Our prototype wasn't a defense anymore. It was a living thing that refused to break. We ran stress tests at dawn, performance drills through blizzards of simulated data. Gabe's monitors glowed red and gold like furnaces. Priya rewrote the routing schema to predict temperature drift in refrigerated trucks, muttering formulas under her breath. Rosa rebuilt the deployment pipeline from scratch. Every line wrapped in encryption. Quiet is good, she said once, not looking up. Noise means someone's watching. By the 3rd week, Forge Works handled full mock state routing Illinois, Indiana, Missouri without a single delay. No crashes, no ghost lanes. Our silence had become our shield. Then the news hit. Connex launched RouteLink 2.0 with banners, hashtags, interviews. Ryan Keller stood under stage lights on a live stream, his tie the same Connex blue I used to color code my dashboards. A new era in freight efficiency. He declared, that night, the first reports surfaced, late deliveries, GPS mismatches, perishable shipments arriving warm. Within hours, videos started flooding TikTok warehouse staff showing boxes of spoiled produce, drivers recording dashboard alarms, thermometers climbing past safe thresholds. Someone stitched a clip of Ryan's speech over a melting pallet of ice cream. I watched it on mute, a dull ache behind my ribs. Rosa leaned over my shoulder. We didn't sabotage them, she whispered. We just built the version that works. Outside, Oak Park's streetlights flickered in the drizzle. Inside, the servers purred, steady and clean. Morgan sent a text that night. Their PR firm just called us amateurs. Keep your heads down. I set my phone face down and turned back to the dashboard. Every lane on our system glowed green. The data didn't gloat. It just moved swift, precise, flawless. While ConX blamed interns and algorithms, we built quietly in the dark. Every successful run felt like a pulse under the city. Quiet proof that ghosts were real. And we were everywhere. It was past midnight when the message appeared on our encrypted channel, an unknown handle. No profile photo, just a line of text. We need to talk. J.H. I almost ignored it. Then a second message followed, attaching a file marked Patent Logs 2022. My pulse stuttered. The file contained scanned filings, redacted names, and a familiar one mine crossed out in digital ink. The signature beneath it belonged to Ryan Keller. I scrolled down, numb, as annotations from ConX's legal team explained how my authorship had been reassigned internally. 2 hours later, my phone rang. A calm voice. "This is Julia Hahn from the Ledger. You were the architect of the RootLink framework. Correct?" She didn't need to convince me who she was. Her tone carried the kind of precision only someone who'd done the homework had. She'd been following the ConX lawsuits, tracing inconsistencies. A whistleblower had leaked her partial data. My name filled the gaps. "I have proof they falsified patent filings to remove you," Julia said. "But I need your confirmation before publishing." I looked at the code still running on my screen. The system we'd rebuilt, line by line. My throat felt tight. "If I talk, it exposes my team," I said. "Then just your voice." She replied. "One statement. No footage. We met in a coffee shop near Union Station before sunrise. She didn't record at first. She just watched me over the rim of her cup, giving me the space to decide. When she finally clicked the recorder, I spoke softly. I never wanted revenge, I said. Just the truth to run clean. 3 days later, the Ledger published The Ghost Code, how ConX erased its own architect. Screenshots, internal emails, and Julia's calm narration spread like wildfire. By noon, ConX stock had dropped 11%. By nightfall, Keller's name trended next to fraud. I sat alone in the Oak Park office, lights off, watching our monitors pulse steady green through the dark. The hum felt different now, less like survival, more like release. The news broke before sunrise. 3 major carriers had suspended their contracts with ConX. By noon, 5 more followed. The market feed crawled red across every screen, numbers bleeding downward in real time. The company issued a statement calling it temporary instability. No one believed it. Our office stayed dim, curtains drawn against the winter glare. The servers hummed steady, indifferent to the chaos outside. Rosa was monitoring performance logs, the glow of her screen painting her face pale blue. "We've taken over 20% of their former load," she said quietly. "And we haven't missed a single dispatch." My phone buzzed. The number flashed familiar. "Mark," I answered. He sounded exhausted, voice thin and cracking. "They're bleeding. Avery." 17 people cut today, 2 teams dissolved overnight. Ryan's been pacing like a ghost. He keeps blaming sabotage, but everyone knows it's over. I didn't speak. For a second. All I could hear was the faint tapping of Priya's keyboard across the room. "I just thought you should know," Mark said. Not all of us clapped that night. The line went quiet before I could answer. I stared at the phone a long moment, the weight of it heavy in my hand. Guilt slipped in quietly. Unwelcome. I saw their faces again, people I'd trained, laughed with, eaten stale conference sandwiches beside, people who'd looked away while I was humiliated. Their silence had been its own verdict. Priya broke the stillness. "New client onboarded," she said, her tone steady. "Midline Transit wants a trial run." I nodded. "Send them the secure credentials." Rosa looked up from her screen. "You okay?" I exhaled slowly. the air sharp in my lungs. "Yeah," I said. "We don't need noise. We have proof." Outside, sirens echoed somewhere along the Eisenhower Expressway. Inside, our system kept running, calm and exact. Each green line on the monitor pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, alive, incorruptible. The world outside was burning itself clean. All we had to do was keep the signal stable. The call came early, before the city was fully awake. Elias's voice carried the kind of calm that always preceded change. "Press conference next week," he said. "New York. This time, your name's on it." For a long moment, I just listened to the quiet on the other end. My name. 2 words that once got me erased from a company I helped build. By the time I reached the airport, headlines were still unraveling ConX CEO steps down amid ongoing scandal. No quote, no defense, just resignation filed in silence. I watched the news ticker crawl across the terminal screen as my flight boarded. For the first time in months, I felt the strange weight of closure pressing against my ribs. The launch took place in a converted warehouse in Midtown bare walls, muted lighting, a single row of cameras. Elias stood at the podium first, delivering numbers instead of promises. Then he turned to me. "This," he said, "is Avery Callahan, the architect behind what we call the ForgeWorks framework, the system redefining cold chain logistics." I walked onto the stage. The hum of cameras rose and fell like distant surf. No applause, no music, just the heavy sound of waiting. "They called me dead weight," I began. Voice steady, so I built something they couldn't lift. The words hung there, suspended between glass and silence. Faces in the crowd shifted, not with shock, but understanding. I thought of the steakhouse, the laughter, the wine glasses clinking, and how far that sound felt from this moment. When the conference ended, reporters surged forward, microphones outstretched. I smiled, shook a few hands, then slipped away before the flashbulbs found me again. Outside, New York glowed in pale winter light. I stood on the curb, coat collar up, watching traffic pulse down the avenue. The air tasted clean, cold, real. For the first time in a year, my name wasn't something to hide. It simply existed quiet, visible, enough. The office in Oak Park hadn't changed. Same uneven floorboards, same smell of solder and old coffee, same hum of servers layered beneath the quiet. I hadn't been back since New York. The plaque from the launch sat unopened on the desk, still wrapped in its shipping paper. The others were gone for the weekend. Priya had taken her brother to Milwaukee for his birthday. Gabe was hiking somewhere in Wisconsin. His phone turned off for once. Rosa had promised to stop by on Monday to install a new patch. For now, ForgeWorks was just me and the machines. I powered up the monitors, watched the interface bloom across the screens in calm, pulsing green. Every route stable. Every shipment arriving on time. The numbers rolled like water, predictable, clean, alive, outside. The sky was still dark, a thin seam of orange pressing against the horizon. The city was waking, but here, time moved slower. I leaned back in the old swivel chair, its metal arm creaking, and let the silence stretch. The system didn't need me anymore. That was the quiet truth beneath all of it. We'd built something that could outlast any one of us. Something unbothered by applause or scandal, steady in its own purpose. I walked over to the servers, their light steady as breath. For months, they'd been the heartbeat of this place. The sound I fell asleep to and woke up beside. My fingers brushed the switch of the test rig. I hesitated, then pressed it. The hum softened, one tone falling away from the chord. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. I exhaled, long and even, feeling the air leave me like the last thread of tension unwinding. The screens still glowed faintly, casting ripples of light across the walls. I whispered, "That's enough." Outside, dawn spilled over the Chicago skyline, gilding the rooftops in pale gold. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel invisible, just still, present, whole.